Welcome to Aquariumania. I'm your host, Dr. Roy Enoch, speaking to you from the University of Florida's Tropical Aquaculture Laboratory. Thanks for joining us. YouTube has changed the way the world shares experiences and learns, and aquarium enthusiasts have taken advantage of this powerful tool. Big case in point, the incredibly popular aquarium channel, Dustin's Fishtanks, with over 107,000 subscribers and millions of views, hosted by wildman Dustin Wunderlich. Join us as Dustin shares his journey from European history major to YouTube sensation, as well as his passions about the aquarium hobby and planted tanks. We'll be right back after these messages.
Molly, here's your dinner. Zeus, that's not your food.
Don't let that happen to your precious cat. Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and conveniently located on the cat tree. It's the perfect way to eat. It's a beautiful wrought iron tray that easily attaches to your cat tree and keeps dogs and other critters out of your cat's dish. A must for multi-pet households. There's a 6-inch tray for large bowls and a 4-inch tray for smaller bowls. Purchase your Cat Tree Tray today. Go right now to cattreetray.com. That's cattreetray.com. CATTREETRAY.com.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Aquariumania on Pet Life Radio. My guest today is Dustin Wunderlich, host of the wildly popular Dustin's Fishtanks YouTube channel. Dustin, thanks again for your time.
What's going on, man? Thanks a million for having me.
So it was a pleasure having you come down and visit the industry when you came down and had some time to spend with us. Wanted to ask you some personal questions. I always kind of like to ask a few get-to-know-you type questions. So let's start with my very first question, which is, how did you get interested in the aquarium hobby?
Yeah, well, before I get into how I get into the aquarium hobby, I had an absolute riot down at your location, man. So thank you so much for having it. I did not have enough time. I mean, I was just kidding a candy store running a mile a minute. So thank you guys for having me down there.
You'll have to come back then, man.
Oh man, I would love to come back. I mean, I don't think I even got into every greenhouse, man. I think I talked to like two. Yeah, I could come back there and spend some time. And the Florida sun is never a problem when I'm up here in the north. So, but how did I get into the aquarium hobby, man? I was always into fish and fishing, and the actual aquarium hobby. Like when we brought the fish inside, I was a little kid, and I'll never forget it in the laundry room. Because I guess that's where the fish tank's supposed to go. In my old house growing up, we had a 5 or a 10 gallon. I think it was a 10 gallon. And it had green gravel, a no fishing sign, like a little bubble filter in the back of it. And we had goldfish in there. I think I had a goldfish in there. And I was at probably 5, 6, or 7. That was my first real encounter with having a fish tank. I guess I don't remember when he died, but I guess I had a goldfish named Doubloon, which a doubloon is like a gold coin, and my dad named it. I wasn't that clever at that age, but and I guess I was crushed when that fish died. And then we kind of had that, and then we kept some bullhead catfish we'd catch. But the bug specifically hit me when I was probably 13, 14 years old at a kid named David Brindle's house. And he had a little 10 gallon with 5 tetras in it and a good light. And I just remember being I got to have one of these. And it was really just a snowball from there.
Now, you mentioned that you worked at a fish store in high school. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What you learned, how it affected you, that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, I got the job. I mean, I feel sorry for the people that worked at that pet store, first of all, because I was there every day after school riding my bike before I was 16. And I worked at Pet Supplies Plus on Tiffin Avenue in Findlay, Ohio. And so I got a job there as soon as I turned 16 or whatever. And I was a little disappointed because I wasn't just immediately put in charge of all the fish, right? So I had to actually put the dog food away and do other stuff with other pets, which was cool. But what that did for me was really just kind of get to know the species and see them well and kind of learn through other people's tanks. And yeah, it was a lot of fun working on a bigger system. I mean, I wasn't the manager of it or anything, but it was definitely cool to you got first dibs on anything that comes in, and a guy tears down a tank and all of a sudden you've got some grown out cichlids that are yours, or my buddy got a red-tailed catfish from there. So it was really just kind of a billowing of the flames for me with the hobby.
So you didn't like go in after hours and like kind of pretend that you were the owner and sell fish after hours?
No, I didn't. I tried, but they locked the door and they kicked me out. But I definitely like got the, it's funny because they have like the bread and butter fish. But what that got me into was like there was a guy that owned the place didn't own them. He was a manager. He owned it. I don't know. He was my boss, and his name was Chuck. And he taught me like crazy tricks. Like I remember the one day we were there and they were changing the parakeets. And quick story on the parakeets. The parakeets come in a giant box. So like they come in this like big box. And one day we were like, I was like, I'll just dump them in. Well, they hadn't clipped their wings. So I like dumped a box of parakeets in and they all like immediately just flew out of the box. Like not one of them landed in the cage. And so like we had to just catch parakeets for like the next couple of days. But with that though, one time the parakeet cage was swapped out and they got rid of a 55 gallon and it had a crack in it. I remember Chuck taught me how to like repair this 55. He goes, take a piece of glass, cover the whole piece of glass and just mash it against the crack. And I never forgot that because I had a 55 gallon tank and they sold me the tank for like $10. And that was just like, as a 16-year-old kid having a 4 foot long tank, that was a huge deal. And the fact that I repaired it myself was even cooler.
That is cool, man. I love the parakeet story. That's pretty funny. I actually had to go through and I went and, as I think I mentioned to you, I checked your LinkedIn site, saw that you were a European history and major and business minor and spent some time in Germany. So you got to tell us a little bit about what history and maybe fish have in common, or at least how you got into history and business and how that shaped you maybe.
Yeah, well, it's funny because the history major, I absolutely did nothing with it I coming out of school. But when I was in school, I studied abroad in Germany twice, 2 3-month stints, once in Leipzig and once in Berlin. And one of the biggest real regrets that I have during that time is I was 19 and the drinking age in the US is 21. So, 19 and you're in Germany, like, I just ran around like a wild man. And one of the biggest regrets I have while I was living there was not learning aquarium German, if you will, like learning how to speak about aquariums and all the German words with aquariums. Cause it's like when you're there, you learn stuff. I mean, you're just submerged in it. So it's like you don't really have a choice. You have to learn it or you can't communicate. So one of my biggest regrets is actually, it's age. I was 19, but not going over there and not just like living in the pet stores and learn how to speak German. One of the things that I did kind of like pull as like I don't want to say by proxy, but like I was able to visit some of these spots around Germany. Like I spent some time in Poland. I speak a decent amount of German, living there 6 months, and I tried to learn it while I was there. Obviously not the aquarium stuff that I should have learned. Not exactly like conversational German though. You're going to learn aquarium stuff. It's a different level. But I spent some time in Poland and I spent some time in the Czech Republic and really just the Eastern Europe. And what is interesting to me is I see now that those are some really, really amazing spots in the hobby. Like there are Polish aquascapers that are off the chain, out of this world guides that are really great. I know the Czech Republic has a really refined fish hobby. So it's kind of cool that I know the history. I mean, I studied post-World War II, Cold War Europe, and those were like the Soviet bloc countries. And it was just cool to know the history of those countries and to see, because they were in such a tight Cold War communist area, how they developed a really refined like precision because they were so cut off and like an internal thing. Like the fish coming out of the Czech Republic are crazy. I mean, I know Seagrass is getting fish in from there that are just, top-notch quality. Like I talked about the Polish aquascaper. So it's just kind of cool that I've actually did spend some time over there and kind of know some of the history and the culture of those people. And then now seeing what they're doing with the hobby is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think a lot of folks don't actually know that part about Eastern Europe and what they've contributed, at least a lot of the folks in the U.S., I think. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit, and let's talk a little bit about what made you leave your previous job. And I had to look up VOIP, although I probably should have known what that is. What made you decide to leave and become an all-out aquarium YouTube guru?
Man, so I will say I had a really great career going there, but it was a commission sales job, and I had an okay year, a fantastic year, and then just kind of a mediocre year the last year. and I was doing it, and I was making money on the side, and I had the YouTube channel was really starting to grow, and I was doing it every Sunday. I mean, that was my thing. It was Species Sunday. Every Sunday I yelled in front of a camera, and people were entertained, and I saw it growing, and I really just thought to myself, I'm building from a business perspective. I was like, well, I'm building this guy's asset over here, where I'm building his business, and I brought in $1 million one year, and they take good care of you when you bring in that kind of stuff commission wise. And then next year it went to like nothing, and I'm like, I worked real hard, I made all this money, and then the next year, it was like, well, what have you done for me lately? And so I kind of looked at that and was like, if I just grind it out with this fish tank thing, I don't think I can make as much. I mean, I thought I could make as much money, and we haven't quite got there yet. But I thought of it more like I can do something that I love all day long. I mean, I'm sitting here talking to you about, European fish tank stuff, right? I mean, that's a dream come true. And I looked at where I was going, and I was like, at the time I was like 33, and it was up and running. And that's some advice I always want to give people. Like, I was already making money with the fish tank, quote, business, if you will, before I quit. I didn't just say like, well, I'm just going to quit my job and I hope this works. Like, it was already kind of going. But I looked at it and I was like, I got to take a shot. I mean, I was young. I'll be 37 next month. I've still got time to where if I fall completely flat on my face, that company alone would take me back, and I fail, I'm going to go get a job, and that's it. So I'm taking my shot, if you will. And I think a lot of people get old. Both my parents worked the same job for 30 years, and they got good pensions and good retirements and all that. And that, first of all, pensions and retirements like that aren't nearly as prevalent as they were in the baby boomer generation. And second of all, they're not really proud per se of their body of work. They're retired and they're just like, whatever. Like, I'm, if I stop doing videos now, look, I got 1,000 YouTube videos. I hid half of them because they were bad, but if I stopped, it was like, well, there's Dustin's videos. That's what he's done. That's his thing. So I just figured it was time to make the move. The funny part of it is when the day I announced I was quitting, I was sitting in my car. We had just got done selling a phone system, and I'm sitting with my boss, and she never talked. She's great. Cece, the God love her, she's great manager. And I was sitting with her in the car, and I had a copy of the Wall Street Journal, and one of the articles said YouTube allows paid subscribers. So at the time I thought, I just had 30,000 subscribers. Yeah, everyone will give me $1 a month, and that'll all be good. Well, it doesn't work like that, but but that's what I thought. So I showed her the article, and I'm like, here is an article. It was like, YouTube offers paid subscribers. She looks at me and she's like, how many subscribers do you have? And I was like, 30,000. She's like, so what does this mean? And I was like, well, this is my 30-day notice. And that just floored her. Like, she was like, we got to talk. So we went and got coffee. And at the time I was like a high producing sales guy for her. So, I mean, she was losing a big wing of her, part of the business. And yeah, I mean, I'm still friendly with them, but I just was like, I'm going to take my shot, and I've been rolling for 4 years now. And we're still doing it, still having fun. So I've got the energy and the gas in the tank to keep rolling.
Cool, man. Well, now I think it's a good time to talk a little bit more about Dustin's Fish Tanks. I did watch your How to Set Up a Ghetto Aquarium on Broke video, which I thought was, hilarious, and actually did have some great ideas, and I can kind of see what you were talking about with the pet store. So where did you get your ideas for that video? And we'll talk about some other ones later.
Yeah, but it's funny, man. You never know what's going to hit, right? So I think the biggest thing with that video is I just went for it and was just trying to act like a thug and just saying ghetto a lot, and just I say, what's up, dog? And this real aggressive tone in the beginning. And I remember sitting in bed writing that video, and I was like, I got to have the ghetto fit. I got to have the ghetto. I was like, all right, I got the ghetto light, I got the ghetto tank, and I got the ghetto, I use a, siphon or whatever, and it's a ghetto siphon and ghetto plants. And, I'm a big actual writer. I actually scripted it out a little bit. And I remember the day I made that, I was kind of pissed off to begin with, which kind of helped the character thing of it. And and I say pissed off, I was just when you make a video and your kids aren't home, you got to just get it done. So I remember just sitting out there and be like, all right, this is the video. And it was Friday, and I was like, my kids will be home at 2. I got to get this done. I was like, all right, here's the ghetto. We're talking. And I just I went through it all. And then the video surprisingly took off. And yeah, I mean, I sat and just 5 different parts of the aquarium. How ghetto can it be? And make it all ghetto and broke as hell aquarium. And it's got like, I don't know, 1.2 million views and my most viewed video. And everybody talks about that one. Nobody talks about the 800 at-bats that I may have not exactly hit it out of the park. So.
Oh no, I'm sure there are many more, but yeah, that's a great one. So before we take a break, I want to ask Gwen a quick question. Where would you say you get your ideas in general for your videos, and maybe can you give us your top 5 or top 10 favorite videos or video series you've made to date?
Yeah, well, it gets hard to keep coming up with really. I mean, the ghetto aquarium videos don't strike every day. I try to just, keep it fresh with stuff that's on my mind and really just coming up with new stuff. The problem that I ran into and I've recently fixed is like there's only so much bandwidth. If I'm editing videos and stuff like that, it makes me hate videos. So I've recently brought on a good editor. But as far as like my favorite content, what I like may not necessarily be what my subscribers want. So I've just come to accept that. Like the ghetto aquarium was a hit and whatever. I mean, I did a series. I was down in Peru. I did a video called People of the Jungle, and I edited that thing for like 20 hours. And I was expecting an Oscar in the mail. I mean, I was just like, they're just gonna, this is award-winning material, and it didn't do that well, and I was crushed by it. But some people who watched it really resonated with them. They thought that was some of my best work. So the Jungle series that I have has always been a really, really close to my heart because I think it's really unique content. And I think a lot of people don't realize kind of where their fish actually are from and what the process goes into it, and they're beyond just like their natural habitats, which is super cool in and of itself, but the actual people that get them and what the wholesalers and what a wholesale in Peru looks like and how these fish are collected and where they're from. Those jungle videos are really pretty precious to me. And then the other thing that I've been doing is the history. Some of the like Axelrod, when he died, I did a video about that, and that actually resonated pretty well with people because people hadn't heard of him. And I think kind of people looking back in the past I like to show people the past of kind of some of the people that have brought us to this point of where we are with the hobby.
Yeah, that's right. I think you mentioned Albert Greenberg in one of the ones who came down. He was kind of as you know, a big guy down here as well. So yeah, I agree. History is definitely a big deal. Well, I think we probably need to take a break. And so let's take a break and we'll be back with Dustin Wunderlich after messages from our sponsors.
We'll be right back, right after these messages. Stay tuned.
Pet Life Radio, the #1 pet radio network on the planet, joins forces with iHeartRadio to put the power of your pets in your pocket. Awesome! Download the iHeartRadio app and rock Pet Life Radio on your phone, on your tablet, on your Xbox, in your car. Pet talk, pet tunes, and fun pet times. Pet Life Radio and iHeartRadio. Positively Possum.
Let's talk pets.
Let's talk pets
On Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
We're back and speaking with my guest today, Dustin Wunderlich of Dustin's Fishtanks. All right, Dustin, we got some great info on kind of how you got into everything and a little bit about your YouTube channel. I wanted to go into that a little bit more. So 107,000 subscribers plus. Now that's a huge number. How long did it take you to get to that number, and what do you think that means, for you, for the hobby? What's your take on all that?
I mean, look, it's a good number. Everybody likes the 100,000. The reality of it is it's not as big of a deal to me as I thought it would be. Because there's always, with numbers, there's always another number. You're always going to want more. You make $100,000, you want to make $150,000. You want to make, it's just, numbers, they always go bigger. It took me, I started in 2009. And quite frankly, I thought I would have hit it sooner. You get a plaque somehow when you hit 100,000 subscribers. I haven't even really applied for that. Like, I guess YouTube sends you one, but I haven't figured out how to get it. So I'm at 107 and I don't know. It's not as important to me as it is to some people. I think it's good for the hobby. The interesting part for me is that I don't really have a reality of the impact that I am making, if that makes sense. Like, it's just a video, so it's not like, if I were to walk into a stadium with 107,000 people, that'd be a little different feeling than like loading a video and 12,000 people see it, if that makes sense. So it's kind of a surreal thing. It's not as tangible as if like you go to sporting event and there's that many people in the room. But I mean, there are that many people that subscribe to my channel, so it's awesome. And I think it's crazy that people are entertained by me ranting into a camera, but I guess it's working.
Yeah, and like, obviously different media. You got your reach is is much more expansive than kind of one little location in a one snapshot. So maybe you can think of it that way too. But yeah, man, I think that's pretty amazing, and I'm sure you'll get quite a few more after. So, what would you say you enjoy and/or find the most fulfilling about your YouTube channel?
Well, that's a great question, Roy. One of the things that when I stop and think about it, I really enjoy, but I don't think that I guess I wish I thought about this more when I did it, and I didn't think of it as work sometimes, and that is the ability to create something that's all my own. And that's really true with, I think a lot of people, they work, they have a family, and they die. Like I feel like I get to actually create something of my own flow and my own exactly what I'm doing, and the fact that resonates, and sometimes doesn't resonate with people, but the fact that I get to do my own take on something that I love and people see that, I think is really rewarding. And I'll give you an example. Like when I'll edit a video, I'll put in certain stuff at certain spots, and it just has to be here. And like the music that I use is like some crazy trance that I listened to when I was in Berlin, and it's just like, off the wall. But then I'll have like 3 people that listen to it and are like, oh man, where did you get that track? Like, what is that? I've heard of that, and they're with me. They're like right with me on the video with the music, and then they're with the video and the content. I have a guy, I met a guy, his name's JP. I met him out in Cali. He's like, dude, I love the music in your videos, man. And I was like, oh, you like Sasha too? He's like, dude, it's the best. So it's like that kind of stuff where I can resonate with people on not just the fish tank level, but like a creative video product, like my own creative stamp, like a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do something that's their own, like truly their own, like unedited, don't run this by the boss, just like go and do it. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I like the most of it, that I wish I actually took a step and looked back at that more often instead of just being like, oh, here comes the next video.
So do you think you're going to do a video like kind of in a rap or music video format then to kind of feed those creative juices?
Well, I have done a fish tank rap, and
okay.
It didn't do well. And surprise, I did it to the Biggie Smalls 10 Crack Commandments, and I did it to 10 Tank Commandments. What? And I did a whole rap, and I did. You count down the 10 Tank Commandments, including doing water changes, use dechlor, watch a fish die more, and I had a whole big verses. And so we've done the rap. We're willing to do the rap again. So yeah, I mean, and for me, the thing that kind of stings sometimes is I'll do I thought that video was just, it was, first of all, it was a complete joke. It was I thought it was hilarious because it was just like, look at this skinny white dude rapping or whatever. And like sometimes people get the joke and sometimes they don't, and it's whatever. So I have done a rap. Yeah, it's fun. The fact that I get to even have the at bat and people are like letting me do something that I try to be funny is kind of cool.
I know you mentioned that you give free live webinars. Have you ever gotten some, or even I guess even with your videos, have you ever gotten some interesting, funny, and/or useful maybe? You don't have to go into any negative ones, but feedback or comments?
Yeah, man. I mean, I'll tell you right now, down there, I owe Eric an apology because the video that I did with him, man, people were tearing me apart that I was cutting him off. And I hope he listens to this and I hope he hears me because I really genuinely, well, I'm going to blame it on my wife and 2 daughters because I live with all women, so I can't get a word in edgewise. So I'm going to put that on my family. But no, I cut him off. First of all, I'm used to being the, star of the show, center, the guy talking only. So I'm down there and I'm looking at hippo tangs, in your facility, man. I've been looking at hippo tangs that are breeding and like crazy angelfish and puffers, and I got excited and I cut them off left and right. I probably cut you off and our little thing on my video too. And that's something that I'd like to improve as far as, getting better with that. It's a thing. And although the other part of it, and I'm just going to say this, the flip side of that is, I don't think that the people that are watching it making those critiques would be entertaining. I think that it's easy to be the Monday morning quarterback, when you're not in the situation. Like I was all pumped up, had a big cup of coffee, got to go check out a bunch of sweet stuff like the day I landed in Florida. I was fired up for that. So that's one of the things. The other thing that I learned is that there's a lot of young people watching. And I do have a big soft spot on my heart for young kids, but I need to, sometimes watch my mouth or just watch the sarcasm. Sometimes, I've had videos where I've lost subscribers just for the pure one video I just told everybody that, like, somebody asked me in a live feed, is that real? Is this a set? Is it real? And I went off. I was like, what do you mean is it real? This is all fake. Everything you're looking at is fake. These are fake plants. This is a fake tank. This isn't even my house. Like, this is not, I went off. I was like, this is fake. That's fake. These plants are fake. It's a fake tank. It's a fake fish food. It's a fake video. I'm not even Dustin. That video I made about my herons getting eaten, that's all fake. And I went off. And I'll tell you right now, Roy, it felt amazing. It did. It felt awesome. I was like, I got done, and I was just like, oh, that was great. Like, I just told everybody it was fake, and it wasn't fake. And it really, the thing that stinks is that, like, it really, really resonated with a lot of people. They were just laughing. Like, they were like, oh, that was funny.
That's hilarious.
But if I were to say that, and I'll look at the other side of it, though, man, if I were to say that to, like, a 10 or 12-year-old kid, right to his face, or her face, they wouldn't get it at all. You have to be like, oh, I'm joking. And I actually had, I watched, subscribers just run, and I'm assuming it's because they were like, what's that? It's fake, huh? And I just left. So I got to kind of learn to watch all audiences, if you will.
Yeah, and I think kind of just meeting you for a short time and talking with you, I know your personality is like great, and that's what people enjoy. So yeah, probably just kind of figuring out which part of your personality, and like you say, kind of watching what you say. But yeah, no, I didn't mind. I didn't feel like you cut me off or anything. I thought that was, hey, this is just Dustin. I said it didn't bother me. So in one of your intro videos, you talked about one of your big planet tanks, rainbow fish and the apistos. And I guess let's start talking about the rainbows first. You mentioned that you bred those. So how did you get interested in breeding fish? What have you bred? And what do you enjoy about that?
All right. Well, I'm talking to a guy who works at the aquaculture lab. So me talking about breeding and talking to you about breeding is two different animals here. The rainbow fish that I have bred were the Bosemani rainbows, and I was fortunate enough to get a good genetic line. And they bred in, I don't know, 2013. I had a big school of them. And then I had some Frederici rainbows that both bred. All these fish just bred, by the way. I wasn't trying to really breed them per se. It was more of a, hey, I did a bunch of big water changes, added a bunch of plants, and then came back and boom, there was fry everywhere. The Frederici rainbows, Melatonea Frederici, or however you pronounce that, were particularly cool because they were not a very common rainbow. And so they're really just it was more of just a fun thing that happened that I was able to get the eggs or whatever. The funny part about the rainbows is that the Bosemani is that I actually had them. I didn't think anything of it, and I cut a bunch of plants off of the tank of my 220. I brought them out to the pond, and then they hatched out in the pond and survived. And I had in my tank, my 220 gallon, for many, many years, I had a just big school of 30 Bosemani rainbows that were just big, just a rowdy dog fish. Rainbows are a fun one. I'm surprised you guys don't have rainbows down there, actually.
Actually, we do, and we have some farms that do them. And I think I was going to share with you one of my favorite personal tanks was a 55-gallon Planet Rainbow tank I had years ago with a Cryptocrina ponegitofolia that I had gotten from Craig Watson. He had, I think, gotten them from when he was doing kind of fish tank or working at a pet store in Tallahassee. Actually, I think he'd been propagating them for a couple decades. So before we talk a little bit more about plants, I wanted to kind of jump back into your rainbow fish apisto tank, and you mentioned briefly a little bit before about your collection trip and being interested in the work in Peru. Tell us a little bit about your trip over there and maybe some of the things you hadn't talked about yet with regard.
Yeah, sure. First of all, I think that anybody who's remotely interested in aquariums should sign up and go on either. And go into debt if you have to. I mean, Margarita Tours is who I want to go with Devin Graham. He runs that. There's also I've been on a tour with Margarita Tours with a guy named Mike Barber, who runs Go Wild Peru. I know there's Project Paiba, which I'd like to go on. There's Heiko, who takes trips. So these are life-changing trips. I mean, you don't come back the same person. Because I don't know how many people have been to a third world country, but when you go there, you realize, how great your hot water is and how great it is to. I don't want to get into the things of a third world country, but you have a better appreciation for your home in and of itself. I went on my first collecting trip. By the way, I felt safe the whole time. I know people are real concerned about that. I went on my first collecting trip with Devin Graham in August of 2012. And I was in a puddle we went on the Nanai River, And everybody thinks the Amazon is one river. The Amazon River Basin is as large as the United States. So that's why there's so many different species. And that's another part of the aquarium hobby that I'd like to really elaborate more on is just once you go there, you realize, like, when I crossed the river from Cincinnati to Kentucky, that's the big Ohio River, and that's like, well, that's a big river in the U.S. Like, the Amazon is like that all over the place. Every single tributary is just massive. So, and I went on the Nanai River, and we collected apistos, and we collected angels, and we went for discus. We saw stingray. I swam with pink Amazon river dolphins, and that just you really appreciate what's going on in your little aquarium when you see these fish in the wild and you see they're just full crazy colors. I mean, we were throwing back in the Nanai angels. And the Nanai angels, by the way, are the scalari that have the better body on them. Like, they have they call them Peruvian ultims. They're not ultims, but they've got a nice tall fin and a good slim line. They're really a sharp fish. So yeah, I absolutely love that. And then I went back 2 or 3 years ago with Devin again. Devin is a fantastic host. And basically, it's like, well, he basically says, like, what do you want to see? And I was like, well, I like Cory cats, and I want to see an Aripaima. And he was like, oh, we have an Aripaima up at the station up here, the medical station. And I was like, sweet. So we went and, did that. We collected hatchet fish by my guy Mike I was talking about got 11 hatchets in one scoop. So that kind of stuff is just so dear to me. Waking up in the Amazon, I mean, with the mosquitoes and all, like, just the whole thing is like, oh, it's just fantastic. I highly recommend anyone should go. Put your reservations and your worries aside. Like, it's safe. It costs you some money, but boy, it's fantastic.
Cool. That sounds like a great trip. So let's go back to plants now. I know you're kind of a plant guy. What kind of draws you to plants and planted aquariums versus more standard fish only or other types of aquariums?
I'll tell you why. There's 2 things. One, you can kind of get some instant gratification with plants that you can't get with corals. If you do right with a planted tank, like, this sounds crazy, but I can watch plants grow. Like, if I get a bunch of plants in and I throw them in full sun and fertilizers, like, I can sit and watch them just go whoop and just expand and grow. Like, I know what they want, and I can see it. I watch it slow. It's cool. I can watch them pink up with adding iron, the whole deal. So that's something I watch them close. I can observe that. The quick growth. The other thing is there's 2 parts. It's balance and beauty. I mean, you got the one hand, you've got, the plants work at the end game of the nitrogen cycle, right? So they can take up that extra nitrogen at the end. So that's a win. And then the more plants you have, the easier it is to keep a little bit higher fish load, provided you have the right type of fish. And then once you have it all balanced, you can go and turn around and make it beautiful. So you can take your plants of what's growing and what's not and figure out what's working, and then multiply that plant or aquascape with it and create your own slice of nature. And I'll quote the late Takashi Amano with creating nature is the ultimate luxury. So, you get to put a bunch of rocks around and, make a good looking tank. I've been real fortunate that I've been around a lot of amazing aquascapers. So I get inspired pretty easily, like, live, and I get the opportunity to be around a lot of stuff. Like, I was with Oliver Knott, and that's how you pronounce it, by the way. It's not Knott, it's Knott. It's the German pronunciation. And I watched him. He's a world-class aquascaper, and I watched him put together a 135-gallon tank, and it was just like, what? And I was decent before I, saw that. So I've been fortunate to be able to, have those opportunities to see some crazy stuff. And the planted tank for me is just, can get a beginner hooked. It's not as expensive as a reef, easier to care for. Once it's rolling, it looks pretty good, gets balanced. So that's just been the draw for me.
So let's talk a little bit about aquascaping real quick. And I know some of the listeners probably aren't as aware of, like, how big it is and how, intricate some of these aquariums can be. Can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
Well, the U.S. is behind. I'll just be candid about that. And that's not a problem. It's not a contest. But you look at what's coming out of Asia, particularly. China's blowing up. Japan has always had, obviously Amanos from there. So it's really, I think that, when Americans look at a fish tank, they see, oh, there's the fish. And they don't see, like, there's the rock and there's the design and there's, like, the vision of what this person's trying to create with a natural flow. So I think that the U.S. has really come a long way with the aquascapers coming out of it. There's an ADA contest that it's a world ranking. And the United States is slowly, a lot of the people from the U.S. are competing at a higher level and ranking higher. And that's good to see. It's not a contest, but I like to see people really getting the U.S. getting more involved into it and taking it as not just a glass box with fish in it and really getting it dialed in and enjoying the process of making it pretty. I mean, you can go out and find rocks on the side of the road. I'm looking at a tank right now that I have rocks I collect on the side of Asheville, North Carolina, that I'm using in this aquarium and going into it and really making it work for you. On the flip side of that, with aquascaping, on my Facebook fan page, Dustin's shameless plug, Dustin's Fishtanks on Facebook, I posted some really great tanks come out of the U.S. and some people were like, man, it makes me want to not even try. The flip side of what I'm saying is that, like, at the same time, like, I don't want people to be discouraged when they see some perfect tank with this perfect carpet and this perfect, like, I want a carpet and they've got this like perfectly manicured moss thing with this crazy driftwood in the back and this little perfect school of fish that just happens to be caught at the right moment, swimming between one bunch of grass to another and all that. And people are like, man, I shouldn't even try. It's like, no, like, that guy does that. And that's the best that tank's ever going to look. And that's one shot, one moment with perfect lighting from a, guy who's, maybe got divorced in the process of setting up that tank versus, just enjoying what you got. So I don't want people to get discouraged when they see just world-class aquascaping. Be inspiring, know that you can do, but do what you enjoy. And if you pink gravel and, a no fishing sign is your style, then run with that too.
Good advice. Hey, let's talk a little bit more about, I know you've got a passion for engaging or thinking about the younger kids and also the older generations and their involvement in the hobby. Can you maybe talk to us about that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the old, then we'll talk about the young. The old, I say old, people over 55, 60, those folks that have a little more time, a little more income. I love seeing them come back to the hobby. They're great customers, but they're also like, they really reconnect with something. So, that guy that pulls the 55 gallon out of he's got a 29 gallon in his garage and he pulls that out and all of a sudden makes a tank and he's getting a lot out of it and really enjoying and relaxing in his age. And I got a guy that was like late 70s, ordering plants and getting a setup going and really just having a great time getting it running. So I like seeing people at that generation. I call them like comebacks or whatever. Like, they had a tank at one point and they come back and they're like, oh man, things have changed and everything. It's like, yeah, but still the basics are still there. It's still the same. And now we got a lot more cool stuff. So I love seeing that with the older generations. I do think that there's a bit of a gap. This is kind of disturbing to me with some of the real old school guys that have these clubs that are real, I don't know. I'm concerned about how the younger generation is going to be connected to these older guys that are just fountains of knowledge. I'll give you an example, like a Gary Lang, world-class rainbow fish collector breeder, and he does a good job of it. But the guys of that ilk, if you will, reaching and connecting with the younger ones, that's a concern of mine. And it's been, I guess, as a byproduct, my YouTube channel does reach some of the younger people. So to the younger people, I really am, I'm worried we live in an iPhone world and everybody's just on their phone and they can just get instant gratification, just, flick the screen left, flick right, flick up, and you're onto a new picture or something else. And there's no like actual connection to nature. So I always am very, very moved by seeing young kids get into it. And I try to kind of billow those flames as much as I can for these kids, because it's like you want to see the younger guys come in and take over. And I remember how I felt when I was 14, man. I mean, the money was burning a hole in my pocket. Like, I was like, I'm going to the pet store, like, and I'm spending 20 minutes just staring at filters. Like, what am I going to buy? Like, how's it going to go? And just like, and then hammering the dude that had all the college kid that was working there about like what fish goes with that. And I remember being that age and just being just like, this is all I want to do. This is, pre-girls, pre-cars. Like, Dustin needs some fish, and that part, I think when kids get into it, it's a really beautiful thing. I hope that we don't, I'm not in the industry enough to know like the numbers of kids coming in versus like what it was or whatever, because I am concerned that there's some of that's being lost. So I hope to do what I can to keep the younger people involved.
That's definitely great to hear. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time. I want to thank our guest again, Dustin, and our producer, Mark, for making this show possible. Hey, Dustin, do you have any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Final words of wisdom? Yeah, do what you love. Do what you love with your aquariums. There's what's the guy name? Is Ray Lucas, I think is his name. He said, get hooked is what he used to say. Get hooked. Do something. Get excited about whatever you got going on. Get into your niche. You're into plants, get crazy with plants. You're into cichlids, get into cichlids. You're into whatever you're into. Like, really dive into it and do you and your tanks and have a blast with it.
Thanks again for joining us, Dustin. I really appreciate it. I'm probably going to tap you again later for maybe a more in-depth discussion on planted tanks. If that's cool with you.
That's cool with me, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on the show. And anybody listening to this, can I do a plug?
Definitely.
Save 20% off your plan purchases. Use the promo code podcast, and you'll save 20% off your plans. Throw little listeners some love there.
Awesome. And we'll definitely make sure that we have all of your web links. All of Dustin's web links will be on his Aquariumania guest page. I encourage all of you to visit my Aquariumania blog on Pet Life Radio. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas for a show, email me at drroy@petliferadio.com. That's DRROY@petliferadio.com. Until next time, please be sure to check out Dustin's Fishtanks, his Facebook page, his YouTube channel, as well as his website, and visit your local aquarium stores. Keep your tanks clean and your animals healthy.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.